I think that we have overutilized the word creative and creativity. And I don't mean that we're ascribing creative to some things that shouldn't be called creative. I just think that the word is so broad that it is almost meaningless. And I suggest an alternative point of view.
Hey, my name is Lex, and I'm a tabletop RPG designer, indie game developer, and poet. I'm best known for a free make-your-own TTRPG system called Caltrip Core. People have used it to make over 250 games over the past couple years. I initially set out to play 100 games in 2025. You know from the title that it ended up 251. What happened? Why do a challenge like this at all? I'm not a YouTuber or streamer. Well, my depression has been so severe the last couple of years that I haven't had the energy to playtest any of my TTRPGs. It requires me to wrangle a bunch of individual adults with schedules and kids, keep up the energy so the playtest doesn't die, and share my art for critique. I just haven't had it in me. But I love games and game design. I am always trying to learn more. So to continue learning and honing my craft, I decided to attempt finishing 100 video games in 2025. I knew I would learn something from playing this many games, but I didn't know what yet. I was excited to find out. Besides, I was working on my own indie game, and I wanted to see what my contemporaries were doing. Now, immediately, I'm sure you see a few huge problems any gamer would need to overcome. 1. How do you find that many video games you haven't played yet? 2. How do you pay for that many games? 3. How do you find the time? First, no judgment on length or definition of a game. You might call it a tech demo, but I might call you an asshole. If I finish a game, it goes on the list. In this context, finish means I at least completed the main story or route. Then, you know those big itch.io charity bundles? The ones no one has time to go through? I went through them and downloaded every game I liked the vibe of. After that, I made sure to clear my daily Steam discovery queue religiously. I added free, low-cost art games I liked to my library and wishlist. I'd also browse itch.io's high-rated and new PSX games. Oh, and I picked up a couple issues of Pizza Prank's Indiepocalypse zine and went through those games. And of course, I too have a mountain of games I've bought but never played. So, questions 1 and 2 are well taken care of. For question 3, time. I quit my office job 2 years ago when I escaped Florida with my partner. I had some money saved up, and my partner found a good job with benefits. I also have a Patreon and games I'm working on, and even though I'm making very little money, my time is my own. So with all 3 problems more or less solved, I was ready to start. As we go, you'll see color-coded graphics with the full list of games I played during each season. Screenshot those if you'd like. At the end of the video, I'll share all 40 standouts in one screenshotable graphic, and it'll be in tier list form. Alright, ready? The challenge begins. So basic math, for my goal of finishing 100 games in 1 year, I'd have to finish 8 1/3 games each month on average. 9 games in January was slightly above pace already. Here are a couple standouts. Escape from Castle Claymount is a claymation point-and-click puzzle game. It's beautiful and it's fun. A game's point of view doesn't have to be deep or transcendent to be worthwhile. Simply experiencing someone's game can show you something new. Both claymation and point-and-click games require a lot of hands-on work. Escape from Castle Claymount may not have an obvious thesis to me, but it overflows with the charm of human-made art, and that's more important than ever in 2025. I guess 2026 now. We'll find a less cheery take on clay later in the video. In fact, that might be the only happy note. The next game makes what I mean painfully clear. In Toy Box, you work for an eccentric toy maker who has tasked you with salvaging or sentencing his toys. Who/which speak to you. Unfortunately, the procedures you're ordered to follow put the toy through immense pain. The toy maker insists they're just toys. You're stuck between your employer and the toys begging you to let them live. It's a harrowing twist on the job simulator horror genre, something I saw a lot of in my journey. If you're not familiar, this genre usually goes like this. You are an entry-level employee doing a boring as hell job. One day, in the middle of your shift, you realize something horrible is happening, and you don't know what to do about it, if there's anything you even can do. Worse, you still have to sort trash into a bunch of bins or whatever, or you'll lose your job and your home. The way I see it, this story template is so popular because it mirrors our own day-to-day lives. You're working an office job when you hear about genocide in Palestine, or another school shooting, or your government bombing Venezuela for resources and regime change, or another school shooting, or another school shooting, or another school shooting. Then you still have to answer emails, optimize sales of a product that makes the world worse, and go to a meeting about a new productivity software that will make your life harder. We're all just expected to do meaningless work like nothing terrible is happening. I say Toy Box is a twist on job sim horror because it skips the mundanity. The job itself is the source of horror. We all know what it feels like to receive a questionable order from a boss and then talk to a real human being impacted by that order. Unfortunately, you can only help until your job is at risk. Most higher-ups don't see customers as people. If you let the number go down, no more home or healthcare. That reminds me, mind the content warnings before you download any games on this list. A lot of them will have intense subject matter. I was depressed almost the whole time, after all. In February, I played 10 games, keeping a brisk pace. Backwater Eulogy is a gorgeous pixel art illustrated visual novel full of poetry. The game features the perspective of one grieving character, and you just sit in it the whole time. Developer Wormfood did such a good job both technically and emotionally. These are the kinds of games I want to play and make. And even though the gameplay is normal for its genre, Backwater Eulogy delivered something that's missing in a lot of games made by corporations for profit. A unique point of view. A unique perspective only Wormfood can see and communicate. When games become a corporate product instead of art, so much of the dev's souls get obliterated by bad ideas from marketing and the CEO. Just look at Metroid Prime 4. As a result, AAA games can no longer answer when I ask, what's the point of playing this? Better graphics, better physics simulations, more shit to do? And look, I know tons of artists work on these huge games, but the novelty can only go so far for me. I want to see something true, to see art not motivated by profit, but motivated by the love of finding a way to say what you need to. I played 16 games in March, much more than I needed to keep pace. Doubt and suspicion nipped at my heels. Was I going too fast? Would I burn out before completing the challenge? If I burned out, I also risked just rushing through games to say I finished them, without engaging with the art in front of me, which would mean I wasted my own time. I hate when other people do it to me, and I really hate it when I do it to myself. Maybe this mounting tension is why I played my first 18 plus games at this time. You have to slow down and engage with it to really experience the games. You have to buy in with your full attention. You have to let discipline give way to desire. This year, I've been challenged to continue uninstalling sex-negative Christian purity culture beliefs. I grew up as religious as Funky Frog Bait, except in Florida instead of Texas. There's a lot of garbage in my brain that I'm still throwing out today, many years after leaving the church. There's even more sex negativity in our culture at large. At the time of recording, the payment processors are still censoring what they deem is sexual content. There are completely benign things prohibited, and platforms like itch.io have already used this as an excuse to take down queer art, even if it's for all ages. This has been a problem for a long time, of course, but a whole new wave of it arrived this year. So, for the cause, I chose to let myself enjoy 18 plus games without shame. To paraphrase Jesus Christ, let they who hath not gooned throw the first stone. More 18 plus games are coming later, so buckle up and love yourself. In the meantime, to see how we got to the point where American evangelicals and feckless billionaires have this much say over what we can buy, The Fire Nobody Started offers a surreal but highly legible critique of every era of Western history since the Industrial Revolution. Each era questions whether technology advancing is the same as life getting better. Is the march of progress an absolute good, or is it just the pacifying drivel the rich want us to swallow? It challenges the notion that things are better than they've ever been. If we've made so much progress, why is there still so much suffering in the world? Why do only the rich get to benefit? We already see LLMs like ChatGPT have helped teenagers end their lives. So many vulnerable people are suffering from AI-induced psychosis, all because a few billionaires don't mind if we die as long as they get paid. They promise a grand utopia just around the corner, that things are the best they've ever been, and this system is good for the people at the bottom too. All the while, you and I and our children bleed for a capitalist machine that does not benefit us. We are disposable cogs, dripping with the entrails of our fellow humans. By the end of April, my total is a hair above 50 games, the halfway mark of this challenge, which meant I could potentially reach my 100 game goal by August, but that's only if I can keep up the pace I've been going at. I don't know if my depression will get even worse, or if another anti-trans wave will blow up my life. 50 games would still be a lot. I definitely learned a thing or two about polish, and genre, and storytelling. But it wasn't enough! Finishing 50 games had given me a taste of something I couldn't name. I knew I would discover this something if I kept going. Some sort of answer beyond the hundreds of cries from artists working in this medium, something they're all trying to say over the cacophony of the internet. But I couldn't make out the words just yet. The Children of Clay, to quote the store page, is a short stop-motion archaeology horror game. The eeriness of photoreal artifacts and claymation establish a tense atmosphere. You sit there, investigating a strange clay figure. Clay is a powerful symbol in stories often associated with life and the act of creation. In Genesis, God makes Adam out of clay. In Greek mythology, Prometheus also sculpts man out of clay. Then there's the story of Rabbi Lowe, who made a golem out of clay to protect the Jewish people in Prague. Hell, even Wonder Woman was made of clay depending on which origin story you read. Ancient peoples all over the world used clay to make containers to store food, build homes, and express themselves. All things required for long-term survival. For us, anyway. In this way, the act of creation is the act of giving life. You see how clay embodies both ideas? But that's not the end of these stories. In many, the creator loses control of the creation. The rabbi loses control of the golem, and it goes on a rampage in Prague. Humans rebel against God in the Garden of Eden. Wonder Woman defies Zeus, her villain father, who imbued the clay with life. The common theme? Bringing a creation to life, whether it's art, or children, or clay golems, means losing control of that creation. Sometimes it's for good, other times, great harm befalls innocent people. Tech corporations think they can control AI with the right alignment training. I'm not so sure. On the other side of the life coin, there's death and the grief that comes with it. Grief is one of my favorite themes in art. It is so powerful that it can ruin your life if you don't face it. So as soon as I saw the title of Can Androids Pray, I knew I would love it. Two versions of the game, red and blue, depict two women left to die in their mechs. They know when the sun comes up, a broken fuel line will explode and incinerate both mechs and their pilots. You sit in the anticipation, watching death crawl closer and closer with each step of sunrise. Your commanding officer, dying next to you, reveals a statistic that changes everything. Out of every 1,000 soldiers on the field, only a certain number are actual humans. The rest are simulated consciousnesses. Are either of you real? Your CO decides she is going to open her cockpit to see if she's human. It's highly unlikely, but both of you are going to die when dawn breaks regardless. So she wants to know if God hears these robots. She wants to know how God feels about her. You can choose to join her or not.
It doesn't matter.
Grief is inevitable. It is a mountain you must swallow if you want to die at peace. You face your loss head-on until you can accept it. Or you don't. You die at the end anyway. The title of Grief Like a Stray Dog brings another dimension to this idea. You play as a young girl taking over her father's job of mailman for a small village during World War II. Instead of the concentrated urgency of Can Androids Pray, Grief Like a Stray Dog calls to mind a wandering, hungry animal that comes around when you least expect it. The former asks, will you die full of grief, or will you accept the end? While the latter asks, how do we live with grief? Both are hard questions, and you'll rot with grief if you give up trying to answer. Homunculus Hotel is a heart-wrenching visual novel in which a therapist helps the guests of a mystical hotel process and accept loss. Of course, she's a denizen of the hotel, so she has her own unresolved grief. I've even experienced something similar to her story. If only you could have let go, she might have stayed. We were in the wrong. But life is full of lessons you learn too late. That's how it is. Those two lines could be dialogue in The Immaculate Drag, an atmospheric, lonely game of poetry and regrets. It features a dream version of Miami in the 80s, drawing heavily on Miami Vice, noir, and synthwave for its aesthetics. You wander, having a smoke and maybe a couple chats before you take the bus out of the city. Even though my experience of Miami was later in history, the 2010s, I recognized the streets and the perspective in the Immaculate Drag. Until 2 years ago, I lived just outside Miami for decades, and I lived there for 4 years of university. That's where my depression first presented itself. I turned 21 in Miami. I made some of the best friends I've ever made to this day in Miami. One of them got married on the last day before the pandemic lockdowns. That day on Biscayne Bay was probably the last normal day I'll ever have. I even met CNN anchor Caitlin Collins while we were both in college in Miami. She recommended a book that would become my literal favorite book, Crush by Richard Seiken, a book of poetry. I have roamed South Miami's hollow streets in the hours after even the nightclub employees have gone home. I walked against the flow of traffic and not a single car would arrive to hit me. Miami is a lonely place, which makes it a perfect choice for the setting of the Immaculate Drag. I have more to say, but I need to show you Condo first, and I didn't play that until later. June gets its own section because 67 games in a month is a lot. My medical issues were my focus during this time. I got a new psychiatrist and we upped my antidepressants pretty much every month for a while. But even if I was crying or feeling crazy, I could engage with tiny games. If I could hear a game's perspective over my mental illness, I could anchor my mind a little. Chewing on ideas and abstractions and potential symbolisms allowed me some relief. Something so interesting and textually dense that my depression can't get bored with it. And boy did I play some chewy games in June. Purgare is halfway between dream and nightmare, evoking purgatory with both its name and flattened color palette. The title Purgare means to cleanse or purify in Latin. It's related to the word for purgatory, purgatorio, which is the ing form of purgare, cleansing or purifying. It's a short horror game with haunting poetry. Are we sensing a pattern? Next, we get even more cerebral poetics in Ocean Ephemera. Opaque games that resist categorization and even analysis are some of my favorite kinds of art, where you can tell the artist is speaking to you, but it's hard to put the message in words. If you had to explain it to someone, you would probably just say, you'll just have to play it for yourself. In art like the kind I'm describing, I like to think the creator had trouble putting it into words too. That's why the art is like this. It's the only way they could express it. I'm not saying this is definitively how these games were created, but that's the feeling I get from bizarre, unapologetic, illimitable art like Purgare and Ocean Ephemera. Like, this is the clearest they could be, and I love that. When devs don't over-explain the story, or marketing executives over-explain the story, you can decide its meaning for yourself. The gameplay is more about you and your interpretation of the art. Nothing is more powerful than the memories and your feelings about those memories that come up when you play a game or read a line of poetry that splits your head open. Yes, I played Signalis back-to-back 6 times and loved it. I loved that game so much it opened my heart to the entire survival horror genre. Before that, I had not played any Resident Evil or Silent Hill games. So in April 2025, Metamorph's survival horror aesthetics drew me to try the game for my challenge. It invokes Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis to compare going through puberty to Gregor Samsa's transformation. That's not a spoiler. It's the first thing that happens. Literally, the first line is, one morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin. Growth Spurt, a meandering intermission into the after hours of a miscalculation, also looks at puberty while referencing Kafka's Metamorphosis, and it is so freaking charming. The main character Noor goes through several stages of metamorphosis on the night of the school dance. While Metamorph uses the roach imagery of Kafka's work to show us how our character feels about the hair growing on her body, Growth Spurt takes you back to middle school, when you were so fragile yet resilient, when you needed to reinvent yourself over and over to move forward. Maybe that's why we feel like we lose so much as we grow up, and some people never let it go. Apocryphana is another game about adolescence. You get sent to the strictest, scariest Christian boarding school because you collect Apocryphana trading cards, and you insist you're not a girl. All the kids find their ways of rebelling and keeping a piece of themselves. Despite its cartoony graphics, it's heartbreaking. Definitely mind the content warning if you try Apocryphana. It is the first thing that pops up when you open the game. Umurangi Generation commiserates with us, with younger generations watching the people in charge do nothing about impending disaster. They deny the truth until it's too late. It expresses the frustration of watching older generations ruin the world and pass it down to us before acting like we ruined it. The gameplay being photography is important. We've borne witness to the destruction of our world, and we have proof. And yet, Psychopomp Gold is an old-school dungeon crawler with new-school psychosis. Through the teenage main character's mental break and the grotesque PSX-style areas she visits, this game explores mental illness and how cruel we are as a society to children, including teenagers. Metamorph, Growth Spurt, Apocryphana, Umurangi Generation, and Psychopomp Gold all relate to puberty and adolescence in their own ways. I think it can be such a strange time that years later, we still need to make art about it. The trauma, as it were. But there's more to it. Adolescence is a transformative space between childhood and adulthood. It's a powerful, universal symbol among humans. Humans have the longest adolescence that we know of the kind that we have. The only competition is other highly intelligent and social animals like other great apes, elephants, whales, corvids, etc. Most other animals don't even have an adolescent period. Some, however, have something more extreme than adolescence. Metamorphosis, the namesake of Kafka's classic, is the process many insects undergo between larval and adult stages. The most famous example is caterpillars into butterflies. Metamorphosis happens inside the cocoon. From the outside, it looks like a time in life when nothing happens. It feels like waiting, a liminal space, if you will. But a cocoon represents potential because of what's happening inside and how. The caterpillar breaks down into goo, digested tissue. However, this goo isn't what turns into the butterfly. It's 10 to 50 dormant cells that contain the blueprint for the adult stage. Those cells divide and become the butterfly. This is according to Missoula Butterfly House. A Butterfly by Alien Melon, which I played back in February, foreshadows this whole metaphor. The game and its poetry is a cry of the caterpillar experiencing loss of self. It focuses on the pain of transformation. From the outside, metamorphosis looks like a beautiful thing, but for the creature, change could be excruciating. Tearing it all down hurts, but it's necessary to build something new. One day, the cocoon will shake. The creature inside will break out in all its splendor. You and I feel our capitalist society shaking, and it won't be long before we've all had enough of this system that only benefits like 5 people. Our cocoon stage is ending. Soon, we will break free. We feel the possibilities. We know it doesn't have to be this way. Going into the second half of the year, I'd played 136 games. I knew I had a decent shot at achieving 200 before the end of the year, but with my health, nothing was guaranteed. I was going at a fast pace. I didn't want to slow down though, in case I couldn't get that momentum back. But if I kept going like this, I could burn out. It's not exactly like I have the most energy, well, with the depression and all. I spent this season adjusting to new doses and new prescriptions, so I couldn't focus for too long. And I sure as hell didn't have energy for social events. I don't think I did much of anything all summer but stay inside. Tiny indie games were my connection to the outside, to artists all over the world. I might have been holed up behind my computer 1,000 miles away from where I grew up, but I didn't feel alone. I was in conversation with all of these artists. Sometimes it literally felt like conversation. Nadia Nova's Slime Feet happens entirely in a chat between 2 women at a now locked down Antarctic base. Everyone is quarantining alone because one of the main characters came into contact with a virus that will turn her into slime and eventually kill her. Developer Nova explores grief in all its complexity, even examining how sex and kink can be part of that process. The writing is flawless. It will break your heart. 18+. Beneath its PSX graphics and dead simple combat, Zero Abyssal Somewhere royals with literal poetry and gorgeous animations. You have to figure out what the game means to you because it does not hold your hand with that part. To me, it's a story about perseverance and killing God. Your character is endlessly durable, though you'll be flung across the map by enemy attacks. There's a sort of frantic desperation to the game that I relate to. With so many big things out of our control, it can feel hopeless. Just keep pushing. We're almost there. June and July added about 100 games to the list. As I predicted, I slow way down in August with 9 games played. I'm at 175 games out of 200. Haven Park looks a lot like a short hike, and I expected a clone, but it staked its own identity quickly. You get to restore and run a bunch of different campsites in Haven Park. You decide what amenities you'd like to add to each. You're taking care of characters having their own short hike moments. Whereas a short hike is about living your life and appreciating the things in front of you, Haven Park is about legacy and believing in yourself when someone older passes the torch to you. For your fresh start, Grandma had to let go of the future of the park and trust that you would do right by everyone who camps here. Like Slime Feet, Aaliyah Timelink is another story told exclusively through a chat log. You connect with someone 1,000 years in the future and help her survive in real time. Legitimately, if Aaliyah says she'll be back in 30 minutes, that's 30 minutes of real time. Bittersweet doesn't even begin to describe what you'll feel playing this game. I'm sure there's plenty of the game I didn't see, routes I didn't explore, but I was able to save Aaliyah. It just wasn't my Aaliyah. I couldn't bring myself to try again. September. Silksong. I played 44 games this month. I also put 100 plus hours into Silksong. It was actually these tiny games that helped me keep playing Silksong at that clip. Sometimes I'd reach a point in a boss fight where I couldn't make progress. You know, when your inputs and decisions are shitting the bed. So instead of tilting like I would in Strive Ranked, I simply took a break. I'd play a tiny game or two, then eat something or go outside. By the time I finished up, I'd feel ready to take on Silksong again. Getting into this rhythm helped me reach 44 games played when it really should have been 1. And of course I loved Silksong. I did not expect it to be about religious trauma, which hits really close to home for me. In fact, I didn't expect it to have a strong point of view about anything. You can project onto a Hollow Knight. Your choices become its choices. You are just one of millions of vessels making a similar journey. No mind to think, no will to break, no voice to cry suffering. I thought Silksong would be the same, but I forgot. Hornet isn't a Hollow Knight. She's a god. With this power, Hornet can topple Farloom's oppressive ruler. You can choose to continue the cycle of gods replacing gods, keeping the world suffering in stasis, or you can let it fall apart and then do what you can to help rebuild. To be fair, Hollow Knight also questioned the merit of continuing the cycle, but Silksong hyper-focuses on the cost of this decision. In fact, a lot of the destruction is your fault. Many characters and areas from the first 2 acts of the game are irrevocably changed in the third. Grief and ruin abound. And the problem still isn't solved. There's more work to do getting to the root of it. Still, Silksong declares, the fight is worth it. It's instantly one of my favorite games ever. Speaking of haunted, cursed worlds, Please Don't Litter uses old PlayStation graphics to provoke our imagination and dread, the quintessential technique of the PSX horror genre. Please Don't Litter takes place on a version of Earth where garbage falls out of the sky every 10 seconds. You work as a garbage collector, making absolutely no progress in the citywide dump. The atmosphere in Please Don't Litter is so overwhelming that it circles back around to being kind of chill. It's more funny than scary, but the game's perspective summons the dread I have over how much trash we humans generate. On average, the total of the USA makes about 80 tons of garbage every 10 seconds. Our global consumerist culture makes so much trash because we are always clamoring for the next thing. When we get it, we throw out the old, not to mention all the packaging. Between the giant timer wired into the earth and the electrical sparks teleporting trash into the futuristic city, we see another round of skepticism of technological progress at all costs. It suggests that valuing progress over everything drives consumerism, which is drowning the earth in trash. That's what capitalists want. A new thing to sell you, or a new way to sell it to you, or a new way to sell you and your data. Who cares how much water or electricity AI uses? We need to force it down your throats because we spent so much money on this. I will never understand why white men's bad investments are our problem. Am I putting too much thought into a game made in 72 hours? You're free to think that, but I don't think so. Please Don't Litter is job sim horror taken to an extreme. It's similar to Toy Box in that the job itself is the source of horror. Oceans and oceans of garbage spill over the horizon. But believe it or not, unlike Toy Box, Please Don't Litter is an optimistic game. Someone comes along to help you escape. I won't spoil the rest of the game. There's a moment when you'll shit a brick. you'll know which part I'm talking about. Fall. I have finally found the right dose and combination of antidepressants. I am properly medicated for maybe the first time in my adult life. I have energy to make more doctor's appointments. I start medically transitioning. The end of the challenge is in sight. The end of being under-medicated. The end of the body I knew. Blank 01 is a surreal minimalist job sim game. What it simulates specifically is the dread of working until you die. I've seen this theme in a lot of indie games recently, but Blank 01 distills it to a brutal shot of existential terror. Like other games in this vein, it asks, what am I even supposed to do about this? Is there no way out? Is any of this worth it? What sets it apart from me is Blank 01 doesn't pretend to know the answers. It's as frustrated and horrified as we are. Then the next very game I played posited an answer. Kondo is similar to the Immaculate Drag. It's a moody rumination with PSX graphics. Apparently, that's all it takes for me to like a game. Both of these pose their own answers, albeit with different tones. While the Immaculate Drag's writing leans slightly into camp to echo its 80s Miami aesthetic, Kondo is serious, terse. Just look at the titles. Drag is a playful pun on taking a drag of a cigarette, a mechanic in the game, as well as slang for something that takes a lot of effort to get through. The language is flowery, using the 4-syllable immaculate, which has all sorts of positive, even divine connotations. Once you realize developer Discrete Infinity is calling life an immaculate drag, it begs the questions, do the positives outweigh the negatives? Is life worth it? The Immaculate Drag's answer is, yes, even this low, it's absolutely worth it, but you have to choose it. On the other hand, Kondo gives you nothing. In its title, the game already insists on the minimum. The Kondo minimum. Okay, you live on the 14th floor of an apartment complex. Today, it's pouring rain. The elevator is broken. When you take a flight of stairs down, you end up back at the 14th floor. You're stuck here with everyone else. Curiously, while Kondo has a much more dour disposition, developer Flubbed Machina comes to a similarly optimistic conclusion as Discrete Infinity. You could even argue Kondo is more optimistic than the Immaculate Drag. The Immaculate Drag lets you wander an empty, cavernous Miami beach at night, accentuating the distance between you and the other characters, but ultimately, the main ending culminates in catharsis. In nostalgic hindsight, the emptiness looks like freedom. Kondo is cramped. You can't escape the 14th floor except by going to the roof. Everyone is physically near each other, but still isolated. But you can have little moments of connection. You might be stuck today, but make it to tomorrow with each other, and things might be okay. The protagonist of The Immaculate Drag is unmoored. The protagonist of Kondo is stuck. It feels like The Immaculate Drag's protagonist has always had the choice to move forward, but making the choice is the struggle. Dream Miami Beach is a cold purgatory that you only need to choose to leave to move forward. In contrast, Kondo's characters have basically no agency. They try, but things beyond their control beat them down. To believe life is worth it from a bleaker position, to me, demonstrates an even stronger will to live. Also, you can smoke cigarettes in both. You know the fucking vibe. 200 games played, passes without ceremony. Come December 31st, 2025, I end the year at 251, mostly tiny games finished. I only talked about 23. Turns out 251 is too many games to easily sum up in one neat thesis. I didn't even get to talk about all 40 standouts. Finding matching threads isn't too hard, and braiding those together comes easy enough after that. But seeing all the possibilities hidden in the raw materials, impossible for a human. Hey, I could show you all the possibilities. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Seriously, shut the fuck you. Because of our limitations, our brains have to prioritize, so they show us only the patterns we find important. Even if you prompted the LLM perfectly to pick up on patterns you like, and show you only the most important things, you have to know what's important to you. And you have to know yourself perfectly. And you have to be right. And you have to trust the LLM doesn't hallucinate. You're back to square one. except the Earth is measurably worse because of the water and electricity costs. You've made no progress in the Library of Babel. Whatever you end up seeing in an ocean of games is what resonates with you. To make sense of hundreds of games, your brain will see the patterns you're used to seeing. A challenge like this ends up a mirror. I bet you could play this exact list in this order while going through the same mental health and gender stuff as I am, and you would still come away with a totally different lesson.
The idea of creative doesn't have stakes to it. It doesn't have an end point. It's fine for it doesn't have an end point, but point of view does. Point of view says the buck stops with what these eyes and brain and matrix of sentience sees in the world. This is what culture is. It is the conversation between my point of view, your point of view, her point of view, their point of view, everybody's point of view. Doesn't matter what. It's like as long as you are applying your particular vantage point from all the sentience that surround us.
I had a conversation with hundreds of game developers over the past year through their art. The ones I remember with the most fondness were games asking the same questions as I am. The ones I find most special were honest conversations I hadn't had before. I'm in my 30s and I've seen games get better graphics, better physics, more content each new generation, and I just don't care anymore. Simulating reality can only go so far. Not to mention the artists being milled into paste for corporations' benefit. So I want games that show me your perspective. I want to know what my fellow game designers, my fellow artists have to say. I want to participate in that conversation. I want to stay and talk. So I don't care how poorly a game is made, as long as it speaks to me honestly. Can I hear your fears and desires across the internet and time? It doesn't have to be loud, just durable. And nothing is more durable than truth. That is the only way I can hear your lonely whispers over the infinite feeds and blaring advertisements. It's like a whispering gallery, which is a structure that lets you whisper in a specific spot and someone else in another mathematically determined spot across the room can hear you. These whispers are how all artists, even dead ones, can speak with each other. It's the idea that pops into your head after watching a movie, looking at a painting, reading a fanfic, anything a human made. Something in you is responding to something in the artist. That moment of connection is why I didn't feel isolated, even when I probably should have. That's why you should make your tiny game and share it. The only unique thing left under the sun is an individual's point of view. Everything has happened before, except you. If you're an indie game dev, it's easy to think, well, no one's ever going to play this game. There's no point in finishing it. There's nothing new. I have these thoughts all the time as a designer. But people like me will enjoy your game as long as you're honest with us. People like me might need that. I'm making an effort as a dev too. I've released one tiny game on itch, and I'm preparing another for Steam right now. So, what exactly did I learn at the end of the longest personality test in history? I learned it doesn't matter to me how unpolished or simple the gameplay is, as long as the artist or team of artists show me their unique perspective. That's where I find true fun and connection. I learned even if you're alone, having a sense of purpose can keep you feeling connected, and that could save your life one day.
Hambony will save your life someday.
I learned clay, connection, and cocoons are what I'm thinking about most right now. I learned I've been processing feelings about going through a second puberty as I start HRT. I learned that for all my mental illness, I somehow ended up with an optimistic interpretation of so many games. Call it hope, call it cope, but deep down, at my core, I didn't find my depression. I found a conviction that this is all worth it. The fact that I learned life is worth living means I don't want to die after all. I once met up with an old poet friend. She had gotten very into skydiving in the years since I last saw her. I'd been skydiving once, but she was jumping all the time. She confessed she was actually leaning on it too much, using it as an escape from the sellout corporate job she hated. And then she said something I'll never forget. Every skydiver I know wants to die. We jump out of that plane to prove to ourselves we want to live, because 100 times out of 100, we pull the parachute. I'm Lex of Titanomachy RPG. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and wishlist I'm Not Supposed to Be Here or Anywhere on Steam. Join my Patreon at $3 or more to get early access to my games and more. Bye!